Hello and welcome to the March of the Machine Draft, Primer, and Mechanics Overview. So what we're going to be doing here today is go over the different draft archetypes you're likely to find in a March of the Machine draft, along with some of the mechanics that these archetypes feature, including the all-new mechanics in the March of the Machine set. So the first of the 10 color pairs that we're going to be going over is White-Blue, or Azorius. And Azorius' main theme for March of the Machine is Knights Tribal. So as we can see with Marshal of Zalfir, the signpost card for White-Blue cares about Knights specifically, as other Knights gain +1/+1. We've seen these kind of anthem effects throughout Magic's history, and this one is there specifically for Knights Tribal. So if you do find this in your draft pack, that is a clear sign to go towards Knights Tribal and look for white and blue cards. Our second color combination is Simic, or green-blue, and it focuses on the transform mechanic. Now this is a returning mechanic that we have seen in Magic's recent history. Transform is a mechanic that we can see here on Skyclave Aerialist, where you can pay a certain amount of mana, and this card transforms. That basically means that you will flip it over from the front side to the back side. In this case, you can pay 4 mana of any color or colorless, plus 1 Phyrexian green mana. Phyrexian mana is another returning mechanic that we've seen in recent expansions, where you can either pay the color specified, in this case green, or 2 life. So you could use 4 mana and 2 life in order to transform Aerialist to its backside. Now the signpost card for Simic is Mutagen Connoisseur. If you happen to pull this in your draft packs, he gains +1 power for each transformed permanent you control. So with Mutagen Connoisseur, you can want to focus on transformed permanents in your draft. So if you happen to be pulling blue, green, these transform cards are what you're going to look for. Green-white, or Selesnya, focuses on counters. As we see with Botanical Brawler, it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters. His second ability, whenever 1 or more +1 counters are put onto another permanent, it gets a +1 counter as well. So, say you put a counter on Ruins of Recluse with its ability, pay 4 mana, put a +1 counter on it. Not only does Recluse get the counter, but Brawler does as well, because of Brawler's ability. So if you're looking to go green-white, you're definitely going to be looking for these +1/+1 counters, and getting as many of those as you can fit in your deck. Golgari, or black-green, features another new mechanic in March of the Machine, and that is Incubate. So we see when Elvish Vatkeeper enters the battlefield, you will incubate 2. What that means is you will create an incubator token, like this card here on the right-hand side, and then you will put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So even though this is a non-creature artifact at the moment, it can get +1/+1 counters, and those counters will remain on it and can be increased through other effects. But the incubator token has an ability that you can pay 2 mana to transform it. So just like we saw with Simic, when you transform it, you simply flip it over to the other side, and then it becomes a 0/0 Phyrexian artifact creature token. It retains those 2 +1 counters, and it is now going to be a 2/2 Phyrexian creature. The Elvish Vatkeeper also has the ability that you can pay 5 mana to transform any incubator token that you control, and if you do it this way, you double the number of +1 counters on it. So instead of a 2/2, it will become a 4/4. Instead of 3 +1 counters, it will be 6, etc. And so that is the main focus with Golgari, is getting these incubate tokens, flipping these incubate tokens. And if you find yourself going the green-black route, these are the kind of cards and interactions you're going to be looking for. White-black, or Orzhov color combination, also cares about incubate tokens, but not in the same way. White-black or Orzhov cares about Phyrexian Tribal. Much like the knights before, it has the enchantment Sculpted Perfection has a Lord effect or an Anthem effect where all Phyrexians you control gain +1/+1. Also, when it enters the battlefield, you incubate. You get that incubate token. You can transform it, and so now instead of having the 2/+1 counters, it becomes a 3/3 because its base power and toughness is increased by 1. And so with white-black, you're also going to look for those incubate tokens, but you're also going to be looking for cards like Seed Pod Caretaker that have the ability to either put +1 counters on your incubate tokens, but also cards that can transform incubate tokens. So when Seed Pod Caretaker enters the battlefield, you can not only put a counter on something, but if you wish instead, you could transform another incubate token for free without having to pay the 2 mana that you normally would. Along with Seed Pod Caretaker being a Phyrexian creature type. So those Phyrexian creature types are going to be more important in Orzhov than just incubate tokens, but the two do work together. And so that is what you're going to be looking at when you're drafting Orzhov in March of the Machine. Our next color pairing, Rakdos, is black-red, and this focuses on a sacrifice playstyle. So as we see with Stormclaw Rager, he has the ability that you can sacrifice another creature or artifact to put a +1/+1 counter on Stormclaw Rager. In addition, you draw a card. Generally, you would think that sacrificing your own creatures is a bad thing, and sometimes it is. But if you fill your deck with creatures or artifacts that have an upside when they die, for example, Injector Crocodile, when it dies, you get to incubate 3. So when it dies, you're not just out a creature, you also gain a creature back with the incubate token. In addition, we see another returning mechanic here on Injector Crocodile, and that is cycling. Generally with cycling, you will pay some cost, usually 2 mana, and you discard the card that has cycling, and you'll draw a new card from the top of your deck. This set brings back specifically land cycling, such as swamp cycling here. So not when you discard the card, you don't just get the top card off your deck, you get specifically a swamp out of your deck. And there's also plains cycling, mountain cycling, forest, etc. And those are also cards to look for in this set to help you make all of your land drops for turn and to keep your decks running smoothly. And since it's usually colorless mana for the cycling, you could even use it for fixing. So if you're just splashing black, you could grab Injector Crocodile, and that will help you find your 1 or 2 black sources in your deck to help you meet that splash. But if you're looking for just a straight black-red sacrifice build, then you're going to want to look for not only sack outlets like Stormclaw Rager, but also cards that have an upside when they die, like Injector Crocodile. Blue-black Dimir also cares about the graveyard and graveyard synergies. So you will see cards like Halo Forager at the forefront of Dimir decks, where when it enters the battlefield you can pay any amount of mana, and then cast an instant or sorcery with that mana value from your graveyard, from any graveyard, without paying its mana cost. And so those are certain cards to look for in Dimir. That graveyard recursion, where even though you've already cast the spell, it gives you the chance to cast it again and reuse it, and basically treat your graveyard like a second hand. Cards like Failed Conversion feature the Surveil mechanic, which is a returning mechanic in March of the Machines, which lets you look at the top however many cards of your library, in this case 2, and you can then put them into your graveyard or back on top of your deck, whichever you choose. Blue-black also features the Mill mechanic, which is much the same in that it takes the top however many number of cards of your library and just puts them all in the graveyard. Fortunately, you don't get a choice on that one. But Mill can also target your opponent. So depending on what your game plan is, you could mill your opponent's cards, get those back with Halo Forager, or you could surveil your own cards to put something in there to later bring back with Forager or other graveyard recursion cards. And so if you are looking into a blue-black draft archetype, those are the kind of cards that you're going to be looking for. Gruul, or red-green, features another new mechanic in March of the Machines. And not only a new mechanic, but an entirely new card type. And that is battles. So a battle is a permanent, much like a planeswalker, that you cast it, it comes into play, it has defense counters instead of loyalty like a planeswalker would have. But with the battle, you put it on your opponent's side of the board, and your opponent has to protect it. So then you take your creatures like Rampaging Geoderm, you attack the battle, and your opponent can either block it or let you hit it. And once the battle's defense counters reach 0, it transforms and comes back into play generally as a creature or other permanent type on your side of the battlefield. In this case, it comes back as Truga Cliffcharger, a 3/4 trample. When it enters the battlefield, you can discard a card to go search your library for a land or another battle card to put straight into your hand. So basically, it'll just keep the battles rolling. You cast one battle, you blow it up, you get the flip, you go get another battle, bring it back, blow it up. And so this chaining of battles will then create a bigger board state for you that will just eventually overwhelm your opponent. And with Rampaging Geoderm, whenever your attacker gains +1/+1 until end of turn, but if it's attacking a battle, it gets a permanent +1/+1 counter instead. So it definitely, you want to have those battles in your deck if you're playing red-green, and you definitely want to be targeting them to grow your creatures, to flip those battles to get more creatures, and to progress your board state. Izzet, or Blue-Red, features another returning mechanic, and that is Convoke. So with Convoke, your creatures can help cast your spells by tapping to providing essentially 1 mana towards the spell's cost. It could either be 1 colorless mana or 1 mana of that creature's color. So, for example, Joyful Storm Sculptor enters the play with 2 blue-red elemental creature tokens. So that's 3 creatures that you can then use to convoke a spell like Shatter the Source. So you could tap those 3 creatures plus 3 mana to pay for Shatter's casting cost, or you could just tap all 6 creatures and not use any mana at all. And then that will cast Shatter the Source for free, where you can destroy an artifact or deal 6 damage to a creature, a planeswalker, or a battle. So just out of nowhere, tap 6 creatures, cast this spell, blow something up that your opponent really needed, flip a battle, whatever you need to do with it. Plus, with Joyful Storm Sculptor, whenever you do cast a Convoke spell, he's going to deal damage to your opponent and each battle they protect. So it'll even help you flip those battles faster, push in some damage to your opponent. And so that's kind of the way Blue-Red is working in March of the Machines. It's still kind of spell-focused, but those spells are specifically Convoke spells. And Convoke isn't just instants and sorceries. There's also a lot of Convoke creatures that will help you build a board state and attack in on the ground. And so it's a very flexible, very powerful way to get big creatures out quickly by using your other creatures to help pay for them. And so with Blue-Red, if you find yourself drafting that way, be sure to look for those Convoke creatures and other creatures that bring in multiple tokens with them to help you convoke those bigger creatures faster. And our final archetype, Red-White Boros, features our final new mechanic in March of the Machine, Backup. This is a brand new mechanic to Magic, which basically says that when this creature enters the battlefield, you put a number of +1 counters equal to its backup onto target creature, and then that creature gains the abilities of this card. So, for example, we can cast Redcap Heel Slasher and use its backup ability on Mirror Shield Hoplite. Mirror Shield Hoplite will then gain a +1 counter permanently and the first strike ability until end of turn. Now you can back up Redcap Heel Slasher to itself, at which point it will get the +1 counter, but it will not get the first strike ability because it already has it. But with Mirror Shield Hoplite, the signpost for Boros backup, he says that whenever a creature becomes the target of a backup ability, you can copy that ability and choose a new target for that ability. So if you were to target Mirror Shield with the backup ability from Heal Slasher, not only would Hoplite gain a +1 counter and first strike until end of turn, but another creature that you control will also get a +1 counter and first strike until end of turn. And that kind of really aggressive play, utilizing the backup mechanic, is what Boros Red White is really looking to do. If you find yourself in those colors, those are the cards you're going to be looking for. So that covers all 10 draft archetypes in March of the Machines and all of the new mechanics that you're going to see, along with the returning mechanics that you're going to see in the March of the Machines set. So now you can go into a March of the Machine draft with confidence that you at least know what all of the different abilities do and what the different color archetypes are looking to accomplish. And so if you liked this video, if you found it helpful, hit a like down below. That really supports the channel. Lets me know that you like this content so that I can do more of this content in the future with other sets. Subscribe to this channel for more content like this and others, like my draft videos or my Magic Concepts stream. And that will really help me to make more content for you guys. Also, in the comments below, let me know what your favorite archetype is out of these. Let me know what mechanic you are looking to try out most. Personally, I want to try all these new mechanics and see how they work, and I am so excited to get into a draft and just see how all this different stuff functions. I think it'll be really fun and exciting. Let me know what your favorite archetype, what your favorite mechanic is in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.